This meeting of the Margate Planning Board is called to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tom Collins.
Here.
Clem Wozleski.
Here.
Mike Richmond.
Here.
Jim Galantino.
Here.
Margaret Gubernalti.
Here.
Mike Cristaldi.
Here.
Craig Palmisano.
Here.
David Carter. Despina Hess.
Here.
Remy Pelosi.
Here.
Joe DiGirolamo.
Here.
Rich Patterson.
Here. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby notified that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of minutes of the July 25th, 2015 meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Approved. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of decisions and resolutions. Number 34, 2015, Gabriel Building Group. Number 35, 2015, Eugene and Dorothy Gilmore Rambler. Number 36, 2015, Peter Campo. Number 37, 2015, Jason Cohen. And number 38, 2015, Stanley Bergman Jr. I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. First case tonight is John Irons on behalf of the property owner, 103 South Iroquois Avenue, Block 9, Lot 11, in the S40 district, to grant a C variance for shed roof height and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Roger Rubin. Yes, I do. The subject property is a lot of 55 by 75 feet, 4,125 square feet, upon which a new house was recently completed. A shed measuring 8 feet by 10 feet was constructed by builder John Irons at a total height of 10.38 feet above grade as compared to the ordinance permitted maximum height of 9 feet, which was clearly shown as such on the approved building permit plans. The variance required is shed height as stated. Comments. The contractor, Mr. Irons, can testify as to what led to this erroneous construction and provide his justifications. Second, site visits will indicate to board members whether or not there are detrimental impacts by virtue of the height variation. 3, my site visit indicates some visibility from the right side neighbor's windows, probably no visibility from Iroquois Avenue up the left side setback due to evergreens, and no visibility from the house on the left, which has a blank wall facing this shed. Regarding the new house under construction around the corner on Atlantic, this shed will block air conditioner noise from the applicant's house to it, and the extra height will probably block the noise a little bit better. Finally, it could be pointed out that there is no garage on this property. No conditions are suggested at this time, except that Attorney Callahan should state that he represents the property owner as well as Mr. Irons to make the case.
Good evening, Brian Callahan of the law firm Callahan Thompson Thompson on behalf of John Irons and the property owner.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly's here as the property owner, sitting in the audience tonight also. Going over Roger's report, we are asking for a height variance, and let me just call Mr. Irons first and walk you through how we're technically 1'11" Roger. I didn't count when I did my initial application the 8 inches of concrete because I didn't realize that you marked from grade, not from base. Yeah. So it is 1/8.
Okay.
Mr. Irons? Where are you?
John Myers. I
builder in this case?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you explain to them why we're a foot 11 inches above?
It was, even though it was on the blueprints as shown as 9 foot, I mistakenly misunderstood that. My reasoning that I built the shed to the height it was at is from previous construction projects where the sheds were flooding, we, in this case, decided to raise the concrete footings and slab work on there by 8 inches so no water would infiltrate into the garage. Additionally, the shed is used as a storage area for plywood panels for hurricane protection for the windows. The plywood panels stand roughly 8 foot tall. So to make it more convenient for the homeowner, it's easier to stand the plywood panels up, and therefore we need 8 foot of clearance inside. And then we stuck with the normal pitch of the roof of the shed to match the home, which is a 512 pitch. And in that case, that's what made us encroach or exceed the allowable height restrictions.
Where was the misunderstanding where you thought it was okay?
I wasn't aware that this was classified as an accessory building that has a 9 foot height rather than a typical garage that we normally build that you can build up to 14 feet tall. So when we were approached by this, or we were notified by Roger, we had the option of putting on a flat roof. So that it's not aesthetically pleasing, and we ask that we can get relief to keep the shed in its current appearance to match the neighborhood in the house, and I'll put a flat roof on it.
Once again, just taking a look at Roger's report, you're going to be blocking anyone's light, air, or view?
Not according to, what I see that it would block any additional views. We're talking 20 square feet on the side views and 10 square feet of area on the front and rear views.
Any neighbors? Right, you're going to have any impact on your neighbors, in your opinion?
Not in my opinion.
Once again, the maximum height is the 1 feet 11. Down at the base, it's still at the 9 foot, and it goes up at the peak.
Correct.
So once again, it's a sliding scale variance with a maximum of 1 feet 11.
Correct.
Keeps in conformity with the house design, peak versus peak, 512 versus 512.
512, 512. We did the same exterior finish work.
And it's 8 inches above grade, once again, to stop the flooding.
Yes, we did that because, again, because of various complaints from other homeowners that we built sheds.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Irons. I would open up to the board.
Well, this is one of those occasions where I've talked to the board about saying what their concerns are, because I've heard a lot of concerns from the board, so I would invite board members to say what their concerns are.
I don't have a concern, I have a question. What is the floor-to-ceiling height interior?
8 foot. 8 foot 0 inches from the slab to the underside of the rafters.
To the underside of the rafters or ceiling joists?
With the rafters that go up, there's really no ceiling joists.
That would be at the spring where the wall is?
Right, where the rafters sit on the edge of the outside walls.
It's 8 foot.
8 foot, yes, sir.
There's no collar ties inside?
There's collar ties up top, there's no ceiling joists.
That's what I think where Clem was heading at, with the collar ties.
Well, he mentioned stacking the 8 foot
You lay them
pieces of
down.
plywood on the inside. I wanted to
You can
know
lay them down, they're only 4
if he
foot
could do
high.
it against the wall or he had to come into the center.
Is this your first project in Margate?
No, sir.
Well, I'm speaking for other board members now that won't speak up. So you've been a builder in Margate for quite a while. You've built beautiful houses around town, and your plan showed 9 feet, and it just seems odd that it's an oops. And every reason that Roger's given and your attorney has given is a great reason to give a variance, except to come in after it's done and say, oops, can we have it now? Which, when you have the board's sympathy of, oh, you have to tear it down and redo it. It sets, I know one case isn't a precedent for another, but this sets a bad precedent of, well, let's just do what we want and then go to the board and tell them, well, sorry, we did it. Just the fact that you've built so many houses in Margate is a concern of board members that won't speak up.
I understand, and yes, I did make the mistake. Most of the homes that I'm building have garages. Very few have sheds.
Could you point the mic towards you, please? It's a
I'm sorry.
directional mic.
Yeah, most of the properties have garages. Very few. I've only done one other project that had a shed. So I'm used to the 14-foot height, and I'm sorry, I didn't even realize about the 9-foot height.
I have a question. Roger?
Yeah.
If they do modify this roof, they can make it a flat roof?
There's no prohibition on a flat roof for a shed in our ordinance. You can have a flat roof. It's allowed.
So then I have a question for Mr. Irons. If you had to modify this, you're going to, obviously, you need to keep the height inside, so you're going to make it a flat roof?
Yeah, I would have to rip off the existing roof and just put just a flat roof.
There's no problem with that, is there?
Yeah, but
And that would be at 9 feet from the ground?
I would have to make it 9 foot from the grade, but again, aesthetically, it wouldn't be very pleasing.
It would be legal.
it would look like junk in that neighborhood.
Roger, I wanted to ask one question just from the site visit. Is there 35% vegetation with that whole backyard with permeable pavers? Okay.
Yes, there is.
That was just a question from that.
Also, just for the record, very quickly, we did have one neighbor who wrote a letter back to me, Mr. Binswanger, at 112 South Iroquois. Dear Brian, absolutely in agreement with the Spain's request. I know he's not here to be cross-examined, but he asked me to please put it into the record.
If a garage were to be built on this property, do you think the property owner would be willing to bring the shed into compliance if he put a garage in that would satisfy his problems?
That's a great question.
Paul Kelly for the property owner. I don't think there's any room for a garage.
If you put a garage in, would you be willing to bring the shed into compliance?
There isn't any room for a garage.
So you wouldn't be willing to?
Well, we just be good.
You sure about that?
So the answer is,
The answer is I would if there was room.
Yes, you would
I would
put
if there
this
were
into
room.
compliance if you
Correct.
put a garage in?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
There's plenty of, there's actually plenty of room for a garage on your driveway side. You have 13 and a half feet, a garage could be 10 feet wide. You got a lot of room. So it's a relevant question.
He said yes.
the answer would be yes.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment? Public portion is closed. Any other comments or questions from the board? Do you want to?
I have one. If you lowered it and you put a flat roof on it, you wouldn't be able to get the plywood sheets in there standing up, would you?
It would be tight, yes, but I can get that.
And you used 8-foot studs inside from your plate to your floor to your plate's 8 foot, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And why couldn't you lay them down? Well, ask it.
It just virtually takes up so much room in the shed. Get rid of that plywood, and then it defeats the purpose.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't it, it's the plywood that's covering the windows?
It's the plywood that you have to have stored on the job.
Right.
In case
The house I built, I did that. They weren't 8-foot pieces of plywood.
Hey, Rich?
What?
After October 4th, that's done.
What's that? Plywood
No.
on the windows?
We don't have to, am I wrong with that, Jim?
No, you're mixing apples and oranges. You can't make new code requirements on the existing buildings. The existing buildings go with the existing code.
Right.
Okay.
Just because it's the new code doesn't mean to get the bite of the new apple.
So
you know?
Yeah.
From that,
Are these are 8-foot pieces, though?
Some are, not every sheet. but
Okay.
Some are, yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want to read more of the conditions?
This would be a motion for C variance for shed height, requirements 8 feet, the proposed is 10.38 feet. The condition would be if a garage is constructed, the applicant shall remove the shed or make the shed compliant with the ordinance. Is that correct, Mr. Callahan?
Yes, the condition was if there was a garage to be built, then the shed would be brought into compliance.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Do you need a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
There was a condition that the applicant agreed to that if there's a garage built, that the shed would be put in compliance with the ordinance. The reason being, I think it's because there's no garage there, and the mistake was made that he thought it was more of a garage height. So you can't have both is really what the purpose of it is. All right.
Hear a motion? Jim, second? Clem?
Tom Collins.
As small as a request as this is actually a little bit harder to decide than some cases I've been on. The fact that Mr. Kelly is willing to try to accommodate the store's plywood when Mike said he moves his plywood around all the time, meaning that once you get your CO, you're not keeping your plywood, and you're supposed to for hurricanes. I'd hate to see this go to a flat roof in that neighborhood. I think it's really detrimental to the neighborhood and the aesthetics of it if you change that. I also don't like the fact that it was built without complying, which it should have been complied. And the building from the slab up, I can understand that mistake, because I probably would have made the same mistake, because I would have said, well, here's the garage floor, and I'm going up so far. But it exceeds that a little bit. All in all, I think the impact and the negatives on this are really not as pertinent as what it would be as if we made them put a flat roof on that property. So I vote in favor of giving the variance.
Clem Wozleski.
I'd like to think this was an honest mistake, confusing the shed height with garage height. And I think the chairman's compromise there relative to a future garage. This is a good one. I vote yes.
Mike Richmond.
Yeah, I understand, being a builder myself, the shed situation where you're raising the floor up so that if there is a flood, water doesn't get in. I looked at the property and I didn't really see any negative to the shed height, so I'm going to vote yes.
Jim Galantino.
I concur with the board. I don't see any detriment. I approve it.
Margaret Cooper-Nolty.
Aesthetically, I think a flat roof will look less appealing than the roof that Mr. Irons has put on. I don't think we're here to punish Mr. Irons. I think we're here to vote on the project that is there, and I think it's not a detriment to the neighborhood, and I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi.
I agree with the rest of the board members. I would like to see one thing, a gutter put on it, because of the height of it. It'll be hitting water onto the property next door, onto a car. Can we make that a contingency to put a gutter on that? Too late? Too late. Too late, then I'll still vote yes.
Rich Patterson.
I see no problem with light, air, space. I see no problem with aesthetics. I'm going to vote yes. My main problem is voting after the fact, but I vote yes.
The application passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
This is the builder that built the house a foot too low. He built the house a foot too low before he got a CO. So he made him raise the house, raise the roof on top of it. He's going to look. So this is my house.
Next case is Jerry and Freda Shevitz, 5 South Nassau Avenue, Block 114, Lot 3, in the S40 District, to grant a C variance for side setback, first floor elevation, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin.
Swear the testimony about to give this matter with the truth, truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. The subject property is an existing two-story, three-bedroom house on a lot 47 by 80 containing 3,760 square feet. The house has a wraparound porch, first and second floor front and right side, and a freestanding garage on the right to the rear of the driveway. Per the plans of Peter Weiss Architect, the following is proposed. Enlargement of the porches, first and second floor. The section facing the street would be enlarged by 1.5 feet in depth toward the street, but still meets front and side setbacks and therefore requires no variance. All porches up and down will have new vinyl rails applied, replacing the stucco wall-like rails there now, creating more light and air circulation inside and out. Note that a grass strip in the driveway is proposed to offset the loss of landscaping by the porch enlargement, so total lot landscaping is not diminished and front still complies. Also, a pitched roof will be applied to the flat-roofed garage, again within zoning parameters and needing no variance. The roof pitch matches the house roof and significantly upgrades overall appearance, while coming in at 12 feet, 4.5 inches in height, almost 2 feet below what is permitted. And finally, a fourth bedroom would be created by a slight front left enlargement of the first floor only, necessitating variances per below. This enlargement is about 13 feet wide by 4 feet deep, plus a small crescent-shaped section of perhaps 4 square feet to square off the rounded corner of the house, again first floor only. The crescent-shaped de minimis piece is proposed to be below current flood elevation requirement. Variance is required in comments. Number 1, left side setback for the addition to create the bedroom. 5 feet is required versus 2 feet 4 inches, which squares off the house and creates a slightly longer left wall in line with the existing left wall. Impacts of this fairly small addition can be ascertained by site visits, which will indicate the house to the left to be about 15 feet from the property line. There is no front setback issue nor a combined side setback issue. The front setback of the addition is 14 feet, while the requirement is 10.7 feet. And secondly, portion of the proposed addition being below required elevation 12. Most of the proposed addition is a bed platform shown at elevation 11, but actually has to be 12 per our latest ruling, and the applicant appears okay with making the adjustment, which would require 8 sets of revised plans. That leaves as a variance the small crescent-shaped area to square off the lower elevation of the bedroom at elevation 9.9. Discussions with Mr. Galantino indicate he considers this de minimis and approvable without detriments to the CRS. No additional conditions are proposed at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Members of the board, my name is Chris Balance, and I represent Jerry and Frida Shevitz, who are here tonight for the property they own at 5 South Nassau, at Block 3 and Block 114. On the tax map, it's in the S40 zoning district, and as Roger pointed out, it's a relatively straightforward application. The front corner of the property has a rounded element which the Shevitz would like to square off in order to convert what is a bathroom to a bedroom. There is a portion that they are asking to remain at the existing elevation so that it can work with what will be an area for a bed, so you can step right up onto it. That section of the addition now has to be at 12. Although, I mean, it's about 17 square feet, and when we filed the application, it was shown at 11 where it was allowed to be. The application was filed and things changed. And Shevitz said, you know, what happened, and I said, the city decided to start enforcing what has been the state law, and you're kind of caught in the middle. You know, if the board would consider allowing that section to remain at 11, that would be great. But they understand 12 is the standard. They weren't caught in that change. So if the board would consider that when you deliberate, we would appreciate that. It's that section, 17 square feet. We would ask, if possible, that stay at 11 as the time the application was filed. which is really the law now. That's changed. It's the time the application is filed, not the time of decision. It's just difficult to ascertain when it is you guys started to enforce that to the letter of the law, and whether there was a cutoff date. With that having been said, the other variance is the existing side yard setback, which is solely a function of the existing building. And as Roger said, it really doesn't appear it would have an impact on the Westcotts next door. It appears next to some substantial landscaping they have in an area that you probably won't be able to see. I'm going to let Pete testify with respect to the plan he prepared and wrap up. If you want to hear from the Shevitzes, they are here. They drove in the flee of those fleeing the Pope versus going to see the Pope. And they actually just got here. It's been a long time. Pete?
Say your name for the record.
Peter Weiss.
Testimony about to give this matter.
Yes, I do.
Peter, you prepared the plan the board has submitted to consider for the Shevitz property. Yes. Would you take the microphone with you and explain what it is you have designed and what the request for relief is?
The project really involves replacing the existing decks and enlarging them. Right now, the decks have a kind of a masonry solid construction, so they're, you can't see through them. So we're going to replace the decks, the railings, with open railings, and enlarge the deck somewhat, which don't require any variances. The second portion of this project.
Pete, none of that work requires any relief from this board. That's all building permit work.
Correct. The other part of the project involves this front left portion of the building. I believe when the building was renovated by a previous owner, this room here was intended to be a master bedroom, and it had a very large bathroom off it, and this front area was occupied by just a shower and a tub. But it's not quite big enough to make into a bedroom without enlarging it slightly, and the Shevitz, since they only have 3 bedrooms upstairs, feel they need another bedroom. They would like to add another bedroom. So in order to accomplish that, we would like to continue the sidewall in line with the existing building and extend the front of the building out 4 feet, which then gives us, a reasonable sized bedroom. The front portion, because it's new and now has to conform with the current flood requirements, would have to be higher than the remainder of the building. The existing first floor is at elevation 9.9. This is now required to be at 12. That switch from 11 to 12 occurred just before the project was submitted.
Pete, can I stop you there for a second?
Yes.
Just so we're clear, because I mentioned this when I started. When the project was originally designed, we were still working with elevation 11, and naturally, if the section was to be at 11 was a bed. It's a platform, and put a mattress on it, and you have kind of a platform bed.
Right, exactly.
The usability of that from 9.9 up to 11, obviously, is much easier for probably anybody than it would be now that it's going to be at 12. We understand that the standard now is 12, but understanding what the function of it is to be, and certainly we believe would function better if the board would consider leaving it at 11 where it was originally designed and permitted to be right before the change of law.
Correct. If this was at 11, it would be just over 2 feet above the floor, about that high. So if you raise another foot, it starts to get a little cumbersome to get into the bed. So that would be one rationale for keeping it at elevation 11. This little portion of blue here, the existing building curves on the front. So in order to not have that curve appear inside the room some strange way, we're asking to keep that at the same floor height as the existing floor. So there's basically a 5 square foot area we're requesting to keep at the existing floor elevation.
Peter, the side yard setback variance, you touch on that, or if you did, I missed it.
Didn't touch on it, but I merely mentioned that we would like to keep the existing side yard in line with the existing building.
And what's the requirement on that side?
The requirement would be 5 feet.
And we are at what?
2.7 feet.
2.7, and what is the length of that extension?
Approximately 13 and a half feet. 13 and a half feet.
And the total area of the addition is what?
61 square feet.
Sorry?
61 square feet.
Do you think that by allowing the addition in that setback will have any detrimental impact on the neighbor to the left? And if you don't think so, tell us why.
Well, the portion of the addition that's in the setback is only 17 square feet, so that to me is pretty de minimis. And earlier today, I measured the distance between our building and the neighbor's building, and I measured 21.6 feet. So we're a substantial distance from the neighbor to the north.
I don't, the Westcotts received notice, and I don't see that here, nor did I speak with either Bobby or Danny about this, assuming they don't have concerns. Jeff, speak about that. That's all I have, Mr. Patterson, member of the board. I don't have any additional testimony. I would like the board and deliberation to consider if they would be 11 and 17 square feet.
Jim? Do you have any problem with the 11 feet as far as flood rates or not raising things up to standards or?
That's what Clem and I were talking about, and Clem had a question about the ceiling height off the 12.
What would the ceiling height over the bed platform be?
Well, my recollection, the ceiling in here is only, actually it's 8.5 feet. So.
How much?
But on the other hand, if you think about bunk beds and things like that, they're up here. The height above the bed can, in a lot of cases, only a couple feet.
It'd be 6.5 feet.
So.
6 feet.
I don't have a personal problem with it. I'm just wondering if there's a code problem with it.
It's 7.
It'd be about 6 plus, I think, right?
I think it's 7 foot.
9.9 going to 11.
Habitable space has to be 7 foot.
He'd be okay going, I think, at 12, you'd have a ceiling height problem.
Well, I'm asking you.
No.
I'm thinking through it, as you said, I didn't think of that.
No, it's 7 foot. 7 has to be.
Well, certainly, if
variation.
we can do it at 11, we're good.
You can always ask for a variation at some point.
So this wouldn't have any impact on Margate if they went to 11 in that small area?
This is, I mean, the area I'm thinking about is about this big.
And that's my question. That's not a problem. I just want to hear from you that it's not a problem.
I mean, it's splitting hairs, literally.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson, the standard really is, will floodwaters be affected when they flow? Because the building's going to be there anyway. That section of the building's going to be there anyway.
My question is if it's okay with Mr. Galantino. So
It's okay. I went around and around in my head. I met with Pete, I don't know how many times. I beat him up. He went to the hospital. I came back.
Got it.
I'm a little confused over the testimony because on the plan, can I finish, please? Thank you. On the plan here, it shows 13 feet 5 inches back from the front corner. Mr. Weiss was asked.
It's just this portion right here.
I understand that. Mr. Weiss was asked what was impacted by it, and he said 15 feet. But the actual variance we're talking about is not either one. What is the actual depth of the variance back?
Oh, okay.
What is that dimension? You didn't give us that.
I asked that. I thought
He did not give it to us.
Okay.
And he gave us the wrong total dimension.
What is the
Shows 14.
Here to here.
There's this funny little condition where the existing wall is recessed in a couple of inches. So if you measure back to the point and we square off the wall, that total length is 13 and a half feet. But out of that, close to half of that is a piece of wall about 2 inches thick.
What's the actual piece in the front? Is it 2 feet, 3/4, 4 foot back? That's not in compliance.
13 and a half feet.
All the way back is not. It's just this piece, that's the blue area. So
What's that?
Oh, I see, I see.
How much is the actual variance? Right. How much is the actual variance?
Tom, you got to be on the record, put your microphone.
Okay, sorry. How much is the actual variance down that wall? It's not 13 feet.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah, it
because
is.
the wall recesses in right here. So minuscule amount.
This is a curved portion, you're putting wall in there to eliminate the curves, it's 13 and a half feet, but most of it has been there anyway.
The right to build the wall. By what, the thickness of the wall?
Absolutely. There's this little drive it reveal thing that runs around there that
Tom, you have it correct, about half of it is the thickness of the wall to eliminate the curve, and then you get to the floor area.
Can you give us a recap on that?
Yes, what Mr. Collins said, technically what is the length of the variance? Technically, the length of the variance starts at the back of the curve and all the way up to the new corner. But
That's not 13
a
feet.
lot of it is just, to eliminate the curve, is just the wall.
And that's 13 feet, that little area there?
No, it's from the beginning of the curve to the new corner, it's 13.5.
Wow.
Is it?
That to that is 13 feet?
This dimension. Yeah, here it is.
Wow.
That dimension, that's
That
13
just
feet.
seems like a lot.
if you look at the plan, the front wall of the bathroom, in the existing building, the wall jogs in a few inches, which was some aesthetic
He's saying it starts here.
design at the time. So if we square out the wall, we're moving the wall out for a couple of inches for the
He's
first
saying it starts.
5 feet or so of the addition.
It starts to move away.
And it's so small, you can't see it on the drawing.
But, right. About 5 feet.
We're fine with it.
All right, thank you.
So you're amending the application to request the 11 feet as opposed to the 12 that you're showing?
Requesting 11 feet for the remainder of the addition.
Yeah.
Little curved part of the existing.
That's okay. We'll need the plan to be revised for that.
Go on record exactly what is the variance? I think everybody's still... Yeah.
Well, okay, we just clarify it and tell us exactly what the variance is, square footage, whatever.
There's 3 variances.
Yeah.
There is a section on blue in the plan, which would be the existing vertical elevation of 9.9. The remainder of the addition, crosshatched on the plan in front of that, is at 11, along with the side yard setback and of 2 feet, 8.5 inches, which is the existing setback, to continue that for this addition.
2 feet, 8.5 inches, rather than the 5.
Okay. A total addition of about 62
I don't know what this one.
3/8.
Any questions from the board? Anyone here from the public like to speak? Public portion is closed. Any further comments from the board? Stan, would you read the motion?
Yes, this is an application, thank you. This is an application for C variances. There's 3 as amended. Left side setback, the requirement's 5 feet. The proposal, as stated, was 2 feet, 8.5 inches. The second variance is from the BFE requirement on the first floor for the section, I think in the bedding area section, you're saying, Mr. Balanson? Requirement's 12 feet, NAVD 88. The proposal's 11 feet, NAVD 88. And the last variance is from the base flood elevation requirement for a little crescent section, as indicated on the plan. Rather than the 12 feet as required, the proposal's 9.9 feet. I don't have any conditions except revised plans, Roger.
Any conditions besides your...
Stan, I have a question. I don't have a problem with anything. I want to make sure they're asking for the right thing. Is the elevation a zoning variation or a code variance?
Zoning.
It's a zoning variation.
Sure? Okay.
Yeah, the FEMA actually has a section that allows the
Right.
planning board and zoning board to grant deviation from that.
That's correct. So it'd be a motion for granting those 3 variances.
hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we do public?
Tom Collins.
Now that we've got the square footage straightened out, this is very de minimis in relationship to the entire property. I see no negative impacts to the neighborhood or to the neighbors. There's plenty of light, air, open space. From a positive standpoint, aesthetically, they're going to be bringing this house into 2016s instead of the 70s and 80s. It's going to enhance the value of that house along with every other house in the neighborhood, and I think it's a nice enhancement, so I vote in favor.
Clem Wesleski.
This is also minor. It's almost a shame they had to come here. I see no problems with it whatsoever. I vote yes.
Mike Richmond.
Yeah, I think the request is de minimis, and I think that the 11-foot, I'm assuming that a couple months ago that would have been legal, so I'm going to vote yes.
Jim Galantino.
I don't find any problem with the application. I think it was well represented by both council and the architect, and I appreciate them coming for such a small deviation. I approve it.
Margaret Gubernalty.
I can appreciate the Shevitzes wanting to create an additional bedroom to their home. The section exists, it's going to be there no matter what. I don't think there's any detriment to the neighbors, and I think it's an improvement to the existing home, and I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi.
I think it's going to be a plus for the neighborhood. I see no problem with it whatsoever. I approve it.
Rich Patterson.
I also approve for the prior mentioned reasons.
The application passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Chris, will you come side?
Our court reporter has asked for a 5-minute break, so we'll take a 5-minute break. Where's Tom?
Is she?
Tom? Oh, you're out.
He's out.
Never mind.
Him and Jimmy are out.
Sorry. Hi.
I think he has a conflict.
Yeah, for this next case, Ms. Guber always recused herself, and because it's a D variance, Tom and Jim have also stepped down. So the next case is Ron Holliday and Robert Mooney, 117 North Jefferson Avenue, Block 328, Lot 413, in the MF District to grant a D variance for density, C variance for lot area, possibly other C variance, and site plan action. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin.
Where the testimony rendering this matter will be that's what
I do. The subject property is 50 feet by 125 feet deep, 6,250 square feet, and presently contains an older building with 4 units, and within those 4 units there are a total of 6 bedrooms, according to records in the city assessor's office. Excuse me. The proposal herein is for a 3-unit building, each unit being 2 stories over a garage storage at grade level, and each unit containing 4 bedrooms for a total of 12 bedrooms. There are 9 off-street parking spaces, which meets the ordinance standard of 3 spaces for a 4-bedroom unit. Total height meets the 30-foot above first floor requirement, and there appear to be no bulk variances other than lot size. Actions required are site plan. The board has authority to require alterations in site layout in terms of access, pedestrian and auto safety, landscape materials and locations, accessory structures, and other site features. A review by the city engineer is attached, and all non-waivable requirements thereof should be included as conditions of this approval. Secondly, a D or density variance, 2,200 square feet of land is required per unit, and this parcel consists of 6,250 square feet in all. When you divide 6,250 by 2,200, you get a permitted number of units of 2.84, which zoning rounds down to 2 units. The request for 3 units where 2 units are allowed is a variance in the density permitted. Approval of a D variance requires 5 positive votes. C variance. The converse of the above is that 3 units would require 6,600 square feet, and the deficiency of 350 square feet is quantitative or a bulk or a C variance requiring 4 of 7 votes. Comments. As stated above, all city engineer requirements per their attached letter. As to the site plan, a 5-foot 6-inch fence detail is shown, but no location. The height should be lowered to 5 feet. It's a misprint, 5 feet, and a specific location shown. Also, the size and species of the proposed street trees should be shown on the plan and described to the planning board at the hearing. Next, the parking arrangement should be looked at and discussed in terms of potentially 9 cars jockeying for space and backing into the street within a relatively narrow area. Next, the elimination of 4 units for 3 sounds good, but the board should consider that the property appears under demolition, although Mr. Bailison told me earlier tonight that it's actually not, and that 12 bedrooms compared to 6 may not be a reduction in land use intensity. Finally, there is no question aging building stock would be replaced by a modern building of attractive architecture and flood-proof design. Also, some ordinance nonconformities of the older buildings being demolished, or maybe not being demolished, would be eliminated to the relief of some surrounding neighbors. No additional conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Members of the Board. My name is Chris Valens, and I represent Robert Mooney, who's here tonight, his partner Ron Holliday, with respect to the property they own at 117 North Jefferson Avenue.
Talk into the mic.
Yeah. It's lot 414 in block 328 in the multifamily zoning district on Jefferson Avenue. The property, as has been mentioned, is an existing 4-unit rental property, one of the properties that this board and the preceding administration has been trying to get rid of or bring into compliance now for quite some time, and it's done really a great job with the turnaround of that neighborhood and the whole kind of bayfront area. The existing building, as the board may know, is 4 units. and previously, before the storm, was 5 units. A fifth unit was located illegal above the garage, but after the storm, it was taken down by Mr. Mooney and his partner, and never ever rented by them. It was purchased that way and used for storage, but the board should be aware there was another unit. The existing building consists of the 4 units. One is 4 bedrooms, one is 2 bedrooms, and there are 2 studios. The 4-bedroom is rented year-round. The 2-bedroom was rented year-round. 2 studios were seasonal and subject to however many people can fit in there over any given weekend. So it's not 6 bedrooms to 12 bedrooms. It's 8 bedrooms to 12 bedrooms. But as I said, those singles really on the weekends of the season didn't have 1 person or 2 people. What is proposed this evening is a new building of 3 units, 3 4-bedroom triplex units, residential, which is permitted. What is bringing us before this board is not only the site plan approval, but the 3rd unit. The 3rd unit, each unit is deficient in square footage by about 116 square feet, about the size of a shed or a bathroom. But, and you say, well, you're only allowed to build a duplex, why are you building a triplex? And what you're going to hear, and Roger pointed out, is that there are 4 units now. Of course, we're going to 3, and there are several, you'll hear, other 3-unit buildings on 50-foot lots in that neighborhood and the surrounding blocks. And that argument only goes so far. What is better and what is individual and distinct about this project, and if anybody were to ask the board in the future, hey, well, you granted Mooney that variance on a 50-foot lot, you can tell them for these reasons. The primary control that we have maintained in the multifamily zone is the floor area ratio. The floor area ratio control is the standard when it comes to density. Understanding that the lot is about 5% deficient in lot area for 3 units, you'll notice that floor area ratio, which is the amount of livable space in conjunction with the size of the lot, standard is 1. This building is at 0.84, which is more than 15% below what it could be. That in and of itself is significant because I promise you, if this was a duplex, it would be it'd be a bigger building. It'd be at 1, and the parking would be just about the same. There would be 2 units of 5 bedrooms each with a 6th study office, whatever it may be, and more square footage than you're seeing right now.
What would the parking be if you had 2 units with 5 bedrooms?
If you had 2 5-bedroom units, it would be
6?
No, it wouldn't be. It's more than 6. It's an RSIS standard, Rich. It'd probably be. I think it would be round up to 7. Okay, don't hold me to that. I think.
I believe it would be 5. How many bedrooms? 5.
Rich said if there were.
Tom Days probably knows better than me, but I think it shows 3 spaces for 4 bedrooms. Then I think you revert back to the 1-bedroom, you get 4.8. So I think it's 5.
So it would be.
So you have 10 spaces instead of 9?
Right, we got 9. Actually, I think we're required to have 8. Sorry, I mean, if it was a single-family home, obviously it would be 2, 2, and 2. But because we apply the RSIS standard, the residential site improvement standard, it's a little higher. Yeah, 2 5-bedroom units and possibly 6 bedrooms. They'd be big units. I mean, they really would be big units. And what you would see, where we're at 0.84 in the FAR with a duplex, that extra 15% would be the 3rd floor, which we don't have on this building. The building's 2 floors over parking. So in terms of land use intensity, yes, 3 units, but the building's smaller and lower than would be a duplex, because to try and get your money back, and I know we don't care about that, but it really is the measure. Try and get your money back to build a duplex, you're going to max it out. You're going to kill it. And it is a lot cheaper, half the price probably, even if you're building this at $100 a foot, this building at 5,000 square feet, say $500,000, difficult as it may be, what's there for some amount of money can be lifted. It can be fixed and lifted. It's not your basic lift. It might be a DeFilippo lift where it's block or it's concrete, but for $150,000 or $200,000, you can do it. And continue with what you have now, which obviously it would be a substantial upgrade, but you still have a lot of non-conforming conditions, wherein the building you see now meets every single standard, meets every one of the bulk standards. There are no bulk variances in this application. None. Roger points out that there's a C and a D variance. I disagree completely. It's more difficult. It's D variance. For density, you don't have both. You don't do both.
Why not?
Why? Because it doesn't. I don't understand where that comes from. I got to have 5 votes anyway, so.
So let's not argue about it? Okay, I respectfully
For the purpose of
disagree.
the record, we don't. You're torturing me with that answer, both. That's what you're going to hear. Let me talk to Mr. Lewis first. So you heard that. Let's swear everybody in at one time and say that you have time last.
So we got a double.
Todd Miller.
Thomas Days. D-A-S-E.
Mr. Mooney, you are the owner of this property with your partner, Mr. Holland. How long have you owned the property?
Approximately since 2010.
And when you purchased the property, you purchased it kind of as is, as a rental property?
Yes.
And the property had a CO when you purchased it, or a certificate of land use compliance for 4 units? Although, what was the actual condition in terms of the number of units and status?
There was actually a fifth. There was an existing freestanding, a large garage, and it had a bedroom above it at the time.
And was your understanding that had been a unit that was rented similar to the studios in the building?
Yes.
You did not rent that?
No, did not.
You used that storage for the tenants?
We allow the tenants to keep their bicycles and beach supplies and whatnot.
One of the things you can do with this property, and obviously, tell the board why you're doing what you're doing. Tell the board why this proposal.
To do the repairs, and it would have required a lift on this property, we were looking at somewhere between $165,000 and maybe a little bit over $200,000. And that was only what we could see. That isn't discovering anything new. When we then looked at redeveloping it for economics, it only really makes sense if we do it with 3 units. If we can only do 2 units there, it makes economic sense to do the repairs. This isn't there, and I've put my partner and I have put a lot into this since we had it. I don't know if this is relevant. We got a pretty small settlement from Sandy, and we took the garage down and everything just because we felt it was unsafe, and we just did that out of our pocket. The insurance didn't cover it because it wasn't like part of the structure. They didn't cover a large wall that had to be removed. It's really just for economic reasons. If I can't do 3 units, it just sort of makes sense that then I just have to repair it, and I just feel that's going to be a mess.
Initially, when you bought the property, was it your intent at some point in time to redevelop the property?
Absolutely. There's a yes. Yes.
And being honest with the board, the last thing the board wants to hear is the fact that they were going to lose money in the deal. But with that having been said, understanding even if you build this 5,000 square foot, building 5,000 square feet for $100 a foot, it's still $500,000. It's probably a couple $100,000 more than lifting in areas.
Yes.
And tell the board why you are willing to take that risk, so to speak.
The house as it is awful. It's non-conforming. The previous owner, I think, was a plumber. He did a lot of repairs. We put new floors in the one large unit. There were actually 6 layers of flooring that we ended up tearing up. So I'm not terribly comfortable having tenants and everything in it, since like I've kind of learned everything, and I just feel that with the way the block has developed, with the 4 units that are right next door to me and everything, it's going to go better what's there, and it makes, I understand if it's not relevant economically to me, but it's just something I sort of have to look at. I feel like this is the proper thing to do based on the street and based on the neighbors, and we've previously gotten some complaints from neighbors about tenants who were there, because I had to rent 2 of the units seasonally, and there's just always issues and everything with that, and I think this development is going to eliminate a lot of that stuff. There are 3 nice, new, beautiful homes, so I don't think I'm going to have kids in there or anything else.
Chris, before you're done with your witnesses, I'd like to make a comment so then they can respond to it rather than waiting till you're done and then board comments. When I first pulled up and I walked up and down the block, and coming from Monmouth towards Winchester, I see a very high-density building, then another very high-density building, then another very high-density. I think there might be a smaller one in there. And I thought, oh, well, this density doesn't matter. This neighborhood is like that. But then when I looked at your parking, all of those 3 buildings, you can drive in and pull into a garage. Yours, you're stacking cars 3 deep on a skinny street. It's a terrible idea. You say building a duplex isn't a viable solution. What about having a triplex with 3-bedroom units? You would only need 2 cars, 2 parking spots per unit, and then you only have 2 cars being stacked instead of 3 cars being stacked. I would think, and from builders I've talked to, that it's not as good as 4 bedrooms, but 3 bedrooms is better than 2, the duplex. It would be more viable as a smaller triplex. Not smaller in size, smaller in bedrooms, which would alleviate, you have a beautiful project, but it would alleviate stacking of 3 cars on a skinny street like that. To me, that's your problem. I mean, your project's a beautiful project.
I understand what you're saying. We went to 4 basically because it makes the home better, so much more desirable. Yeah, and even for if someone was looking for investment, or if I keep the front unit and I rent out the back 2 units, it's for families coming to the seashore. In my opinion, I say this respectfully, I just feel that everyone's looking for 4 bedrooms, and when I talked with Todd with going over all this, I said I thought it was important that we have good storage and everything for everybody, and we put that down below. I don't know if everybody will be cars just because it's there.
Yeah, I have no problem with the project, except this, if something could be worked out with the parking, I would have no problem with the project.
I mean, but let me talk to Robert first, and if you would give me a couple minutes and let me talk and explain to you, and then I got a comment for you guys, because you look at that bedroom on the first floor, I mean, you eliminate the bathroom and you eliminate the closet, it's still a room, and it's going to, you call it an office or a study, you can make it smaller, whatever, but that's without changing the floor plan dramatically and have it come back, that's where we're going to, that's what you're going to see. So I just want to make sure if that's something that this gentleman will do, that's the best one for you guys.
Okay.
So 5 minutes. First floor.
Yeah, there's that one little bedroom on the first floor.
We're back in session.
Mr. Chairman, following our conversation, I discussed with Mr. Mooney modifying the building to three-bedroom units by converting what is the first floor bedroom adjacent to the kitchen to a dining room. The wall between the two rooms will be a half wall, and to make sure that it stays that way, at least in concept, to eliminate the shower and bathtub and make that powder on that first floor. The first floor, you'll see the kitchen and the great room, the dining room next to it, the powder room, and there will be 3 bedrooms on the second floor identified as bedrooms. The parking count, we will revise the plan. The parking will be consistent with whatever the ordinance standards are for three three-bedroom units. The remainder of the building obviously still complies in all respects. Okay. Thank you. Todd, if you would. You've already been sworn. Todd, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. Is there any comparative plan that the board is considering and discussing?
Todd, could you talk into the microphone? We can't hear you.
Discussing the renovation that I just put on the record, that is physically feasible?
Yes, absolutely.
And what you'll do is a counter wall or half wall between what will be now the dining room and the kitchen?
Yes, we'll reconfigure the kitchen so that there's a walkway through between the kitchen and what we're showing as...
That's even better, so speak to us about that.
If you turn to page A5 on our drawings, which is a blow-up of the floor plans. So what we're talking about doing is making this, which was our 4th bedroom, getting rid of it. So it's no longer a bedroom. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the shower out of the bathroom. So there'll just be a powder room on the first floor, and there'll be no full bathroom on the first floor. And then we'll reconfigure the kitchen into an L shape with the L on the outside wall, so there'll be a pass-through from the kitchen to what will now be a dining room, an area for a dining room table. And then we'll have a much bigger great room, which is nice too.
Will you get more storage that way too? Will you get more storage that you have where the 3rd cars would be?
Yes, on the first floor we'll have just more storage space, yes.
Todd, just go backwards now, just kind of walk through quickly, since we now don't want to take too much more time. If we just kind of walk forward through the building and why, some of the stuff I talked about at the beginning, why you limited to 2 stories of parking, why the FAR is where it is, things that.
We started by just looking at the property. What can we do with this? And for about 3 minutes, we discussed trying to renovate the property, which would involve a lot of work, lifting it 7.5 feet, and there's all these nonconformities. And so, like I say, we really talked about it for 3 minutes and said, you know, this is terrible. I mean, it could be done, but it's terrible. We really should be building a new building here. We looked at the community and we thought that we were close in area, and the community, we thought the density on that street, there's lots of similar high-density buildings, similar floor area or lot area per unit. So we thought 3 units was a reasonable solution. We then went about trying to figure out how we could design, knowing we were coming to this board, we wanted to design a beautiful building that really required no other bulk variances for you to consider. That was an asset to the community and a very simple, marketable building. So we wanted to make sure we didn't maximize a lot of things. So even though we meet all of this, the front yard setbacks, the rear yard setbacks, the side yard setbacks, we comply with the building height and all your other bulk requirements, but we wanted to make sure we gave a little bit back to the community as well. So our FAR is lower than is required. We're actually at 0.86, so we're 14% under the permitted. So that theoretically, we could build 850, 900 square feet of more house in there. That's theoretically, but we didn't do that. We also have a little bit more on landscape coverage in the front, just a little bit, and we have quite a bit more landscape coverage on the lot as a whole. So we're trying to soften the appearance. And then, of course, we designed the building not to look like a row house, but really to just look like a big house, because we thought that would be very suitable and sensitive to the street there.
all the bulk criteria, setbacks, coverage, obviously meet the ordinance requirements.
Yes, that's correct.
There is storage space for each unit,
Yes.
and obviously parking
I don't want to
form now as well.
It's fine, I don't want to hurry along.
Well, generally, if you could tell us, what are you thinking about the parking configuration as opposed to what's there now, and will that interpretation be a better plan going forward?
Well, I guess the simplest solution would just be if we're down to 6 parking spaces, we would just make them 3 pairs of tandem spaces, and then the storage areas would just get bigger.
Three side by side, well, actually, you don't have
Yes.
more stack.
No, 3 sets of tandem spaces.
3 sets,
2 deep.
and obviously each of those twos will be for each unit.
Yes. So no one has to worry about their neighbor moving a car to get out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tom, without me asking you any questions, if you would, speak to what Robert Scott said about raising the building and maintaining it. So it's not conforming continuous versus what we're doing with the new building.
I'm going to quickly go through the area.
Who's Tom?
I'm sorry. Tom Days, would you kindly introduce yourself to the board, what firm you work with, and what your credentials are? Thank you.
My name is Tom Days. I'm a professional engineer and licensed planner in the state of New Jersey. I work for Arthur W. Ponzio Company and Associates, and I'm here tonight as planner engineer. All right, I think we're all familiar with the location of the site. We're between Winchester and Monmouth on Jefferson Avenue. I'll quickly move through, we'll call that A1, it's aerial. And I'll go to what Mr. Balinson was referring to here this is our survey, and I think you've all seen a copy of this. This is what is out there today. As has been referenced, we have a 2.64-foot side yard setback that's there today and a 3.39-foot rear yard setback. Under the scenario, if we were to lift this house, if we only go up to the minimum required, all of these setbacks can remain. We don't have to do anything. We don't move the house. So we would continue with a 2.64-foot setback here to 3.18. That's about a minimum you would ever want to be for safety, fire safety, things like that. We actually are 11 feet to the adjacent building, so it's not the worst case scenario, but it's still not a great scenario. Here in the rear yard, like I said, we're at 3.39. That's a very small setback. Site coverage and landscape coverage. Our plan shows we're basically about 95% site coverage right now. I think there are some areas that maybe some of the pavers have been removed and there's a little bit more pervious coverage now, but we're basically looking at a fully impervious lot. So that's the existing conditions. Any of those nonconformities remain based on lifting to the minimum requirement. So with that then, I will...
Talking about the parking, although there appears to be substantial open space to the right side of the lot, there's actually a parking field identified. It looks to me to be about possibly 3 legal spaces.
Yeah, when we first looked at the plan, it's a little deceiving. There's actually a planter, a small wall right here, so cars can't, there's no vehicular access to the back of the lot. Vehicular access is basically in the front portion of the lot here. There's a concrete driveway that is wide enough for 3 legal spaces. I'm sure that there have been times when more cars have been jammed on the lot, but in terms of legal spaces that Margate recognizes, there's 3, maybe possibly 4, depending on, based on the curb cut, we've got I believe it's about a 30-foot curb cut, so that's 3 spaces there.
Thanks, Tom. I interrupted you. I thought it was what is proposed. Why you think that's a better plan in terms of municipal land use?
So here's what's proposed, and this is again what you've seen. And what we are proposing is a plan that meets all of the bulk requirements in terms of setbacks. We're at 8 feet on both sides. Obviously, that's a better scenario for this neighbor as opposed to being at 2.64. That opens that up with that neighbor. Here, even though there's a lot of open space there now, we're still at the 8 feet that's required by your ordinance. We're not asking for any relief there. In the rear yard, where a good portion of the building goes across the rear property line at a setback of 3.39 feet. We're now opening that up completely by having a 25 plus, it's actually going to be 25.06 feet setback. Again, that conforms to the 20-foot requirement. The first and second floor decks are 20 feet. That conforms with your ordinance. So in terms of the light, air, and open space that we always refer to, this plan is far superior to what's there now for all of the neighboring properties.
And obviously now the plan's been modified, we're going from 8 bedrooms to just 9 bedrooms, is that right?
12 to 9, yes. Correct, which cuts down on the number of required parking spaces. Obviously, that was a concern. But we would.
The existing property has 8 spaces, where what's there now is 4 bedrooms, 2, and 1.
Yes, the existing has, I guess, total of 6 bedrooms, or 8 bedrooms. So the parking demand, as I said, we have maybe 3, 4 at most legal spaces. We're well below what would be required for the existing use. What we're proposing meets your parking ordinance.
Let's then speak to a jump ahead. Positive criteria, negative criteria, and special reasons why you think that although this lot is slightly deficient, why you still accommodate what's
Sure. As we've said, we require a D variance here for density. The one measure of density is units or square foot per unit. Your requirement is 2,200. We're coming in at, have that number, at 2,083. So we're 116 square feet per unit low on that. Floor area ratio is another measure of density. We're 0.86. We're proposing 0.86. So from that measure of density, if that's the standard we applied, we conform. No need to be here tonight asking for any variances. That being said, we are asking for variances, and I have to show you that there's some special reasons why you can grant a D variance here. As was discussed, there are code issues, there's safety issues, there's electrical issues, there's the there's a setback to the neighboring property. That presents a general welfare issue with the neighbor. We're eliminating all that if you grant this D variance. Additionally, the FEMA, we all know what base flood elevation is, the impact that has on our community. What we have now is not compliant. There's ways we can make it compliant. We believe this is the best way to make it compliant. We're meeting that. So we're providing 3 new units, brand new development that meets all the base flood requirements. I mentioned light, air, and open space. By meeting all of even though we're asking for a density variance, we meet all of your required setbacks. So light, air, and open space is not being impacted by what we're proposing. You've seen the design. It's a desirable aesthetic improvement in the neighborhood. It's certainly improving the aesthetics of this neighborhood. And then if we go to the negative criteria, as far as impact on the zone plan, and on this I will quickly go to this other exhibit I have. The densities on this, the average density on this block is actually a little over, we'll call it 1,900 square foot per unit for the entire block. So what we're proposing is above the average, below what's required. But it's a use that's permitted, and like I said, we're meeting all the other standards. So in terms of impact on your zone plan, there really isn't any. I mean, we're developing it as the plan's anticipated. When we look at the floor area ratios, we're consistent there. So you're really not negatively impacting your zoning plan. And
Just what your point is that there are other 3-unit buildings on lots that are similar to our lot, the 50 by 125.
yeah, what I highlighted here, and I guess I should have explained this a little better, the green lots that I've highlighted, this is a blow up of the tax map just for this block. These green lots, this is us here. This is 2 lots over, it's lot number 405. It's the identical situation to 3 units on the same size lot. It has...
Tom, you don't have to go through each one. Just
Okay.
trying to make that point that we're not coming up with a plan that's completely deviant to the neighborhood.
In this block, there are 3 other properties that are developed with a similar density. On other blocks, there are other units that are also similar.
Speaking to the negative criteria, whether the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to public good and without impairing the intent and purpose of the zone plan ordinance, do you think that the negative criteria is addressed by this application?
Certainly. I mean, like I said, we're meeting all the requirements. We're meeting the use. We're not asking for a use variance. It's It's just basically, we used the word de minimis previous application, a de minimis variation to the density requirement.
And do you think then, in light of the FAR, in light of the fact the coverage has been almost infinite, do you think the lot of 50 by 125 could accommodate 3 units proposed at 2 stories of living space over parking?
Certainly, and especially now that we've reduced the unit count, or the bedroom count, so less intense parking requirement, so it's even more in line. Now, I was going to tell you it was in line before, and I think it could have been, and it would have been a decent development. I think we'd all agree this is better for the neighborhood to have a lower parking demand.
Thank you, Mr. Case. That's all I have. Mr. Patterson.
Any comments, questions from the board? Joe? Talk into the mic, please.
Trash storage. You only have just one place for trash?
I don't think it's on.
Trash storage. You only have one spot for trash stores, or does everybody have their own under the steps?
There is there'll be a storage area underneath.
For each person?
For each unit, so they'll have their own. Of course, they also have...
Because it doesn't show it on here, so.
Each trash unit will be segregated per unit?
Yes.
Show that on our revised plan?
Yes. Yes.
Anything else? Anyone here from the public like to comment? Oh, I'm sorry. Your name?
The only thing, Roger has it in his notes here that we were going to discuss the trees going to be used, and I don't think we got there yet. The trees to be used?
I'll let Tom handle that.
Yeah, that was mentioned in Mr. Rubin's report. We're proposing, the plan as it exists right now proposes a flowering cherry tree for the street trees, the 2 street trees. And they will obviously be located on either side of the curb cut and driveway.
Oh, okay. Anyone here from the public like to comment? Public portion's closed. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I
Stan?
have something
Go
about
ahead.
that. The engineer's report talking about waivers, have they been...
We're okay with all the comments the engineers report.
Okay, so there's no waivers requested, and as part of the condition, we'll put in that...
Typically, Stan would address those directly to Mr. Wahlberg's office by letter.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Also, Mr. Ballinson, I'm assuming, although there's a little debate about it, the C variance for the bulk variance, we'll vote on that. I understand that you don't, it's questionable.
I think you should look at that, determining going forward whether or not
I'm going to.
something that should be in there.
I actually think it's an interesting question.
You make a determination that is required, I think you'll find it's not. If you make a determination that it's required, I'm not going to argue with it.
Yeah, I understand. But for purposes of this, let's just put it into the motion, because you're going to need 5 affirmative votes anyway, so we'll just throw them together. Okay, thank you.
You'll argue with him, but you won't argue with him?
I just told Stan, I don't agree with what he says so.
But if he says so, you're arguing.
If Stan tells me that it's legal...
Sit down. Sit down.
All right, so this is we're going to vote on for major site plan approval, and we're also going to vote for D variance for density. It's a D5 variance. The requirement... What's that? The C variance is for just a shortage of footage at this point in time per unit. So
the quantitative bulk variance.
I guess we could debate that.
Which we've always done for the last 4 decades.
Okay.
Chris,
all right, so be motion in the affirmative for those 3 things. Please state your reasons for granting the variances.
Now, there's going to be 2 votes. We're going to vote on 1 and 3 as one vote, and then we're going to vote on number 2 as one vote. And the first vote will be on 1 and 3.
You know what I would suggest, actually, because the D variance...
That's what you suggest?
Yeah, I know. I'm going to change my suggestion now. We'll vote on site plan approval, and then we'll vote together on the D and C variance, because they're really intertwined.
So we can vote 1 vote or 2 votes?
Yeah.
1 vote.
1 vote?
We'll vote 1 vote.
Okay. I take that back. It'll be 1 vote on all 3.
Stan, is that C variance on what we're presented with, or what they say they're going to change to?
Well, Is there a change in the square footage?
No, they're changing the number of bedrooms.
Well, I know that, but I think that the variance for the C was for the shortage in the square footage per unit.
Well, I'm talking about the site plan.
Well, the site plan's as amended, yes. Absolutely.
As amended.
Just to clarify, so if there's 4 votes in favor, then 1 and 3 pass and 2 doesn't?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Second? Micah, would you like to second?
Clem Wozlewski.
It's a little confusing as far as what we're voting on. If I'm voting on...
Would you pull your mic down facing you? It's just...
If I'm voting on the site plan as I look at it, but changing it in my head so that the dining room or the bedroom becomes a dining room, which I think is a lot of smoke, because it's going to end up as a bedroom anyhow. A lot of word games. I think I have to vote no.
What do you think?
Mike Richmond.
Yeah. I think that the area in question is a multifamily district, and I think that the variance is small enough that I don't really think we're making a big concession by allowing the 3rd unit to go in. I think that it was a good compromise to eliminate the 1 bedroom, and the way we did it by actually making them take a wall down is less conducive to them making it a bedroom when the unit's completed. So I'm going to vote yes.
Mike Cristaldi.
If we turn it down, they could build a duplex with 2 4-bedrooms, which would be 8. We're at 9 now, so for 1 bedroom, and they've given up quite a bit here. And it's a good-looking building. I compliment you on the building. I vote yes on the 3 bedrooms, but
Craig Palmisano.
I agree with Mike's assessment. The changes that were made, 3 bedrooms, are very important to me. It is a dense neighborhood, and it's a beautiful building, and it's an asset to the neighborhood. I vote yes also.
David Carter.
Based on the changes that were discussed and the building and the changes in the parking and so forth, I vote yes.
Despina Hess.
I vote yes as to the site plan as amended. I'm not voting yes because of the potential alternative of the owners maintaining the current building and adjusting it as you see fit. To be clear, the benefits, I believe, in this situation factually are the fact that there are no bulk variances. As you suggested, there are all setbacks and the building height are being met. They're by right. I like the fact that you're 14% under the permitted mass, and most notably for those reasons and not hearing any opposition, I'm going to vote yes as to each of the variances requested.
Rich Patterson.
I'm voting exactly as Despina Hess. Yes. For her reasons.
The application passes 6-1. Chris, will you come sign?
In this next case, Mr. Palmisano was recusing himself. The other board members are back. Cases David and Teresa Diano, 302 North Union Avenue, Block 522, Lot 22, in the S40 district to grant a C variance for front and side setbacks, landscaping, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. The subject property is a one-story, three-bedroom house on a lot of 33 by 80, 2640 square feet. Present setbacks are almost 3 feet right and 7.73 feet left, 19.32 feet rear, and 14.84 feet front. It is proposed herein to raise the house to elevation 14.2 NAVD 1988, which is higher than the required elevation 11, in order to create storage and a garage underneath. While doing so, there is a very small first-floor projection at the entrance door on the left. In addition, a new second floor is proposed, but the house will still have only 3 bedrooms, and it will otherwise be renovated inside and out. A paver patio is proposed in the rear yard, as well as other site amenities, including upgraded landscaping, removal of the left side metal carport, a parking space in front of the garage for a total of 2 spaces, curbside trees, and side yard stepping stones. The second floor addition is designed to meet side, rear, and front setbacks. Also, an existing front porch is being elevated to the level of the new house's first floor. Variance is required. Note that all variances set forth below are necessary because the house is elevated more than 3 feet above the BFE of 9 to elevation 12. It's being elevated to elevation 14.84. Since the house is new, 14.2, I'm sorry. Since the house's new first floor is proposed at elevation 14 or 14.2, 2 feet at the top of the elevated first floor, and only those 2 feet are the subject of the below variances. There are no variances associated with the new second floor. So the variances are front setback 17.9 feet required compared to 14.84 feet to that de minimis 2-foot topmost section of the elevated first floor. Right side setback 5 feet is required compared to 2.95 to the same segment. Combined side setbacks 12.2 compared to 10.68. Comments. Prior to the enforcement in Margate of the state law that is creating these variances, it was the board's interpretation. What happened? Blackout will unpack.
We could hear, and I was freezing.
We're still here. Yeah, it's fine.
Quiet. Prior to the...
Okay, talk faster.
Prior to the enforcement in Margate of the state law that is creating the variances, it was the board's interpretation that if an elevated house exceeded the required first floor elevation by any amount, it would be permitted without variances as long as the total height was within the maximum for the allowed lower first floor. In this case, the proposed house would end up at 24 feet 6.5 inches above the allowed first floor, which is 2.5 feet lower than permitted. There are indentations in the side walls which alleviate even the most minor detriment of these variances. Third, the building will become modern, attractive, highly flood resistant, and parking and landscaping will improve, as well as the site layout and removal of the carport. Finally, the architect and owner are to be complimented on the second floor, meeting all zoning parameters. No conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin, members of the board. My name is Chris Bayless, and I represent the Dianos who are here this evening. They live right around the corner from me. It's about the 5th house I've done in my neighborhood that's being lifted because of the storm. It's an existing 3-bedroom, 1-story house with a big front porch. What is proposed is to raise it so that there is parking at grade, the first and being raised and building a second floor. Right now, there is 1 legal parking space on site. Obviously, parking will apply should parking be permitted at grade under the house. The variances that are brought about are solely brought about, as Roger pointed out, by lifting the house The porch is existing, that's why it's raised in place, and you see it at like 3 feet from the front property line. We agree together that that is probably too high and too close, and before we can amend that, put that front porch, the front deck, whatever you call it, at a 5-foot setback, which is the minimum requirement for that when there is no average to take. So we will amend the application stamp so that the front porch, when it's raised, will come back at 2 feet, whatever it is.
How wide would the porch be?
The width of it would remain the same.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, 10. You go from 12 to a little bit less than 10, I think, Rich. It's the setback right now, Pete, can you help me with that? Right now, it's 2.9. It'll be slightly under 10.
So can you hit me with this one more time?
Yeah, what's the setback for the front porch? 5?
5 feet to the edge of the deck. And I think Mr. Patterson still has something to say about that.
So that meets the requirement, you're saying?
No, it doesn't.
No, the average on the block is not 5.
I thought you said you couldn't get the
measurement.
measurement.
More. In fact, if you look at the house next door, it really doesn't impact them because they have a little kind of recessed alcove for their front door. It doesn't affect anything that they would use or views or light or air. Pete, please.
Chris, before you go to Pete, one quick question, just to avoid confusion, instead of splitting hairs, couldn't you just say 9 feet?
Would you just say 8 feet, did you say?
9 foot,
Did you say 8 feet?
Yes, the answer is yes. So, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, well, you can change it again, huh?
3 feet will be eliminated from the 12-foot deck. The deck will now be 9 feet, so the front yard setback to the deck will be a minimum of 6.
You knew I wanted 4, so you're getting it close to it, so I won't object.
So it's 6 feet instead of 5, and the deck's going down by 3 feet, you said?
So the deck will be 9 feet instead of... And will it be at the same elevation, right?
Elevation, the first floor elevation.
Yes.
Peter,
Yes, I do.
Pete, would you kindly take the board through the plan you prepared and variances, emphasizing what variances are simply brought about as a result of raising the house?
Okay. This thing house is rather small. It's 2-bedroom, less than 1,000 square feet. It was flooded during Sandy. So our plan was to raise the house higher than the PFE plus 3 feet, which would be 12. At 12 feet, we could do this with no variances, but we are requesting to go an additional 2 feet, 2.2 feet, in order to have a full garage underneath, meaning 8-foot ceiling height and a garage door. The existing first floor will be completely remodeled. The 2 bedrooms in the back will be converted into 1 large bedroom. The living space in the front is going to be completely redone. We're adding a stair to the 2nd floor, and on the 2nd floor we'll have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The 2nd floor meets all the setbacks and all the bulk requirements for zoning, so there's no variances involved whatsoever for the 2nd floor.
Pete, the 2nd floor, you actually tucked it in so it does meet the zoning requirements?
Yes, we pulled the sidewalls in 2 foot 2 inches on either side to meet the setbacks and to create some symmetry to the building and balance.
So essentially what's required then is about 2 feet of sidewall on the one side, on each side that's deficient on the first floor.
We're deficient 2 feet on the right side, and the combined side yard we're about 1.5 feet deficient.
No other variances are brought about by virtue of raising the house?
The front yard. The existing building is encroaching about a little more than 3 feet into the front yard setback.
Say that again, what's the front yard setback, please?
Required to be 17.9, we will be at 14.8.
That's the existing condition of the face of the house.
Right.
And the front porch, just so we're sure, the house to the right, which would be a house adjacent to the deck, they just have front yard there. Am I right, Peter? Are you familiar with it? The house to the right, adjacent to the front porch, it's just yard area there. There's no deck or no porch. that right?
Yes. Well, no, it's got a deck on it. Where's the right side? Yeah.
Well, I'll leave the board members rely on their own site inspection for that. Pete, with raising the house, we're still well within the height requirement.
Yes, we're several feet under.
You designed the Dempsey house to the left or on the corner.
Correct.
We're slightly lower than that as well, am I right?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the board, I don't have any more questions. It's a side yard setback and front yard setback, which are existing conditions.
Chris?
Yes.
Did you say the house on the corner is lower than?
No, we are lower than that.
You are lower than that?
Yes. We did that about 2 months ago.
The house on the left, yeah, that's getting another floor added onto it ultimately.
Oh, okay.
When
Thank
it's
you.
dropped back down and finished. Ultimately, we're 3.5 feet under the maximum building height.
About combined setback.
Combined side yard, feet side width, that's variance as well.
That's, I thought, okay.
This is really one of those cases that we shouldn't be hearing. And the front deck, which I have concerns with, is not even a variance, but it sure affects how you treat your neighbors, how I look at the overall project. This reminds me of the house that was built across from Stephen Cookie's, and I had similar objections, where you have this massive structure in the front of the house when everybody else's yards and decks or everything is pulled back 14, 15, 18 feet. So I'm glad you drew it back in 3/4 of what I would have hoped for, but other than that, there's nothing else you could do with the house. The house itself this is just a silly application that you have to go through.
What was the front, what was the
Right, because of the
survey
state.
for the front porch?
Deck now is 12 feet deep, it's going to go to 9 feet deep.
Right, but for the setback, porch setback?
It's 2.96 now,
0.9.
You're going to 6?
8.9 is going to go to 6.9.
Yeah, and regarding the front porch...
What's the requirement, though? I'm sorry. Was there a requirement for that? There was a survey done for that, for the measurement?
Actually, well-
I'm just looking for the requirement, that's all. Because I want to be able to list it accurately in any resolution. Right.
Chris, you said that wrong.
When I surveyed the
5.9.
street, I determined the front setback to the building to be 17.9 and the porch to be 20.5. I think typically, when the porch setback comes out to be greater than the building, we just take the building setback for both. So I would say that the requirement is 17.9.
No, there's no requirement for the deck that's before us tonight. It's just, when you say the front setback is 17 feet, that may be true, but if you looked at the house, you wouldn't think so. You just see this massive structure that's 2 feet from the property line, so whatever. You moved it back 3 feet, so that's settled. Yeah. Thank you.
And the requirement, you're saying is 17.9 because you're going back, there's no front porch measurements there, so you're going to the principal.
Yes.
Understood now.
Any other questions? Anyone here from the public like to comment? Who are these people? Public portion's closed. Any other comments? Stan, would you read the motion?
The motion would be variances for front setback, required 17.9, proposed 14.84. Right side setback requirement 5 feet, proposed 2.95 feet. Combined setbacks required 12.2 feet, as proposed 10.68 feet. First floor elevation requirement 12, proposed 14. Porch elevation, I think it's the same, correct? 12 and 14. And in front porch setback, they're going to go to 5.9 feet rather than the requirement.
And that'll be a revised plan showing that.
And with certain conditions, that the porch will be downsized from the plans, and amended plans will be submitted, reflecting all the changes and modifications made to them.
Correct.
A motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Mike.
Tom Collins?
This is another case of Sandy ravage, and what Sandy has done to a lot of our homes is really horrible. give you a lot of credit for taking the time and effort to actually invest back in beautiful Margate and make it better and keep your home and make it nice. I think the application as it stands now, there's no real detriments to the neighborhood. I think that it's all very positive. I think you're going to actually improve the values of your neighbors, and you're going to end up with a property that you'll really enjoy. So I vote in favor.
Clem Wozleski?
Well, this meets all the requirements of our new master planner, Sandy. So there's not much to dispute. I vote yes.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good idea they're raising it. It's a bad neighborhood as far as flooding goes, and I'm in favor of it.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I vote in favor of the application. The property will now be flood compliant, and also for the other reasons as previously mentioned by the other board members.
Mike Cristaldi?
I think it's a hardship on the people that they had to do it, and it helps our rating system for the town, so I vote yes.
David Carter?
I vote yes, based on what Tom and Clem said as to the Sandy situation, and the neighborhood has been pretty hard here.
Rich Patterson?
I'd like to commend the applicant for cutting back on that front deck. The rest of the application's a no-brainer, and I commend you for rebuilding there, and it's a nice project. I vote yes.
The application passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Your motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Good draft.
Motion's adjourned. Clem?
Thank you, guys.